By now, you probably saw the headlines. Ontario is proposing 8% HST rebate for first-time home buyers on top of the 5% federal HST rebate that was already in place. That's huge. If this actually gets passed in the upcoming budget, you could be looking at a $1 million home costing under $900,000. But before you rush to sign that pre-construction agreement, I want you to pause because builders are panicking right now, and what looks like an opportunity might actually be a trap. So in today's video, I'll be talking about 8 different things. I'll first be talking about the good news, the 13% rebate, which is amazing. Then we'll talk about the reality and why builders are being desperate and what they are offering. And then we'll talk about the quality problem that some of the builders have. Almost all of the builders right now, especially in Ontario, are not liking their build quality, and we'll talk about that. I'll talk about the hidden cost, which is upgrades. We'll talk about the timeline risk if you're buying or if the home is actually getting delivered 2027 and beyond. I'll talk about my personal experience of buying a pre-construction. I actually lived in a pre-construction home for just over 1 year. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about why older homes. I live in a much older home right now. It was built in 2007, if I'm not mistaken, and why it could be a smarter play. And finally, I'll be busting a myth where I see a lot of people saying, but I only pay 5%, and that's a trap. And we'll talk all about this before you go and sign those pre-construction papers. A few months ago, I made a video where I talked about the 5% HST rebate and how it's not even a drop in the bucket. But right now, that 5% HST rebate is close to 13% of overall rebate if you include the provincial rebate, especially if you're a first-time home buyer in Ontario. And that's amazing because that would mean that $1 million home will cost you $870,000. But here's the problem. Just because the rebate makes the price look cheaper, that does not mean that the risk has gone away. The reality in pre-construction is that builders are desperate right now. And that could be seen in their deposit structures. 5% down today, and that's it. Everything else comes at closing. Many builders are now offering incentives with monthly payment plans instead of lump sum. Why? Because they are not selling enough units. And many of these builders are struggling to find financing with their banks. Now, don't get me wrong, all this is great. Builders needed to do that. Pre-construction homes were not supposed to be 20% higher than the resale home, and that has now reset. This is exactly how it was supposed to be. But the problem is that right now, given the economic situation and not enough people buying homes, let alone pre-construction homes, many of these builders are canceling projects midway. Why? Because they could not get financing to build from the banks, or they're simply running out of money. That means that as a first-time home buyer, you could get a home, wait for 2 years and never get the home because it never gets built. So sure, builders will do anything to sell inventory right now, but now more than ever, we have to look at the quality of the builder and how long they have been in the market and whether they can sustain the current economic environment or not. Which brings me to my third point, which is the quality problem. Let's talk about the construction quality. Even builders like MatMe, who have been here forever, even they are struggling to maintain quality. You must have seen a lot of videos on Instagram around a new Mississauga freehold project, which is starting at $750,000. It sounds great, right? Freehold, decent location, and a brand like MatMe. But here's the fine print. The $750,000 price point gets you a 3-story townhouse with a portal fee of $100 a month. It's just 1,100 square feet. And there is no backyard. Now, I've seen many MatMe homes and they are not known for their construction quality. They are okay. It's not very bad. It's not very good. They are somewhere in the middle or a little bit lower than middle. Now that their margins are tighter than ever before, what corners do you think they'll be cutting now? And MatMe is still a really big name. Forget about MatMe. What about the newer builders? What about smaller names? What about people who do not have as much experience of building with such low budgets? All in all, the construction quality has to suffer if you're buying a new build, and you have to consider the possibility of that before you sign that agreement. That brings me to my fourth point, which are the hidden costs of upgrades. You don't even find out about these high costs of upgrades until months after you have signed the agreement. Let's say you buy a home today, 6 to 7 months later, they'll call you for a design appointment, and that's when they'll tell you how much a quartz countertop would cost you. A basic kitchen backsplash has 7 levels of upgrades. Heck, I've even seen showers without a glass door, and the glass door is an upgrade. I've seen builders give MDF countertops as standard. and then charge you a $7,000 to $10,000 for that quartz countertop that you want. You could easily end up paying $50,000 to $80,000 extra for something that could have been standard. And doing these upgrades later after you move in is a lot of headache because it leads to dust in the home, noise, chaos, especially if you have kids. And yes, you'll probably just pay that 30% premium to the builder to get it all done before you move in. Now that's not even the biggest risk, which brings me to my fifth point, which is the timeline risk. Many projects which are being sold right now are delivering in 2027 and beyond. That's 2 to 3 years away. Ask yourself this: what if the market drops another 10%? What if the interest rates go up again? What if you lose your job? If you can't close, the builder has every right to keep your deposit and even sue you for damages if they sell for a lower price than what they sold you. So these flexible deposit structures can become an absolute nightmare if your situation changes. A lot of you who have been following me for a while, they know that we bought a pre-construction townhouse in 2020. This was November of 2020, and we got the delivery of that townhouse in April of 2023, and we lived in that townhouse for about 1.5 years before we sold it and moved to our current home. Having lived in a pre-construction home for 1.5 years, I will never do it again. Number one is dust. The entire neighborhood is still a construction zone. Driveways are not made yet. The backyards don't have any grass and it's all dusty. And all this dust comes straight into your home. One of the main reasons why we sold the townhouse and moved to the house that we are living in right now is the dust. Because Simran got pregnant in 2024, there was so much dust still around because there were some homes that are still being built in the area, and Simran just could not handle the dust, and Simran started sneezing constantly because of the air quality. And especially if you are someone who is a young family with kids or you are expecting kids, you have to consider the reality of living in a construction zone. Which brings me to my second reason why I would not move to a pre-construction again, and that is no community. Parks weren't ready, roads were not safe, and if you have kids, there's literally nowhere for them to play. And then you have the problem of schools. They are not assigned yet. Some are still getting built and they are so new that you have no idea about their ratings. And then depending on who you are, and I'm not saying this is a limitation of buying a pre-construction, it could be, if for the right person, this could actually be an advantage, but these new communities are not very diverse in terms of, different people living together. It's not very multicultural because they are, most of the pre-constructions are bought by immigrants and not by people who have been living here for many years. All in all, it's not just about the house being new. It's about where and how you live for the next few years, which is one of the reasons why we sold that home and moved into an older home, which I feel that for most people might be a smarter play. Yes, older homes come with the problem of older appliances, older furnaces that might require a change in a few years. But in my experience, they are built stronger in established neighborhoods with mature trees and real communities. You know the school ratings, you know your neighbors, and you can inspect exactly what you're buying. That peace of mind, in my experience, is a lot better than the illusion of buying a shiny new home. And that brings me to my last point for this video, which is a massive trap. The argument that I only have to pay 5% down right now and I'll be able to save more for the down payment as I move closer to closing. We don't know what happens to the job market in the next 2 years. What if you lose your job? What if the savings rate come down significantly? What if the home's value drops further and the appraisal from the bank comes in much lower than what you bought the home at? Now you'll need a much bigger down payment and a higher closing cost. And if you're not able to close, like I said before, you will lose your deposit, and that's only the best case. You can also get sued for the price difference if the builder sells the home for a lower price. So that low deposit flexibility also comes with a high risk. So yes, the HST rebate is really good news for first-time home buyers. But that doesn't automatically mean that you have to sign the agreement on the next new build that crosses your table. Builders are panicking. They're dropping prices. They're giving you incentives, not because they want to help you, but because they need you to save their project. If you are a first-time home buyer, focus on livability, not hype. Drive through the area, visit the parks. Look at the schools. Talk to people who are already living there, walking their dog when you go visit the neighborhood. And if you still want to go ahead and buy a new build, make sure to work with someone who has lived through this and knows the fine print. That's all I have for today. मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए bye bye.